Hello everybody, my name is Jimmy Ong. I am a course developer and instructor at Coding Minds Academy. So this video is for a USACO Bronze course and it's going to deal with your first USACO Bronze question. So it'll teach you how to correctly do file input and output. As you may or may not know, USACO doesn't use standard input and output, nor does it have an editor like LeetCode or HackerRank. So instead, to take in your parameters and inputs, you'll need to read an input file, and to return your answer, you need to have an output file. So the question that we're working on today is going to be from the USACO 2020 January contest, and in the bronze level. The name is Word Processor. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video, take your time and read through this question. There'll also be a link in the description, and I'll summarize it in just 1 second. Alright, so what exactly are we trying to do here? So we're given some input parameters that are going to be how long the essay is going to be, and also how many characters we can have per line. And then also we're given the actual essay itself as one long string. So our goal here is to format the essay string to have no more than k characters per line, not including spaces. There'll also be no spaces at the end of any line. Alright, we can use this following strategy to help us solve this problem. If Bessie types a word and that word can fit on the current line, then put it on that line. So a word can fit if you can add it to the line and the character count is still less than k. However, if you try to add a word to the line and the character count is over k, then what we'll do is put the word on the next line and continue adding to that line. Until we can no longer add to the line, then we just repeat the process. So taking a look at our sample input and output, we can see what's going on here. First of all, in the first line, we'll have two numbers. So the first line is going to give us the n and the k. N is going to be the amount of characters total for the essay, and k is going to be the amount of characters that should be on each line. Right, so the number we're really concerned here is the k here, the 7. So this means that we can't have any more than 7 characters per line. So the character count per line must be less than or equal to 7. So after our n and k, we'll have our input string here. So it's just one long sentence. And here's what the output is supposed to look like. Right, so every line has less than 7 characters excluding spaces. So hello my, that's going to be 5 plus 2 is 7, and there's no space at the end. Right, if we were to add name to the first line, hello my name, that would be over 7. So instead of adding name to the first line, we start a new line and then we add name there. And we keep repeating the process until we've formatted the entire essay. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So first we'll need a few files. Let's go ahead and make an essay.txt and an answer.txt. So if you're using REPL, this is very easy and kind of self-contained for you. All 3 of these files live in the same folder, so it's very easy to read and write files. It's a little more difficult if you're writing on your own IDE and your own system. You'll have to do some type of system path. So our essay.txt is going to be our sample input file, or rather just our input file. And the first line is going to be n and k. The second line will be the actual essay itself. So how I want to get started is just by going ahead and reading the file. Here's how I can do that. Pass in the file name, then open it in read mode. So if we look at our input file, we can see that the very first line is going to be 2 numbers, n and k. So what I want to do is save these numbers into a list so we can use it later. So I'll do args equals f.readLine.split. So this allows me to split up the line into its components, and now I have a list of 2 numbers. But in actuality, these numbers are actually strings, so I want to make these into integers so that later on I can use it in comparisons. So using a bit of list assignment and casting, I'll do just that. And now these are numbers, or rather integers. Right, so that's the first line of the thread. Now I want to read in the actual essay string itself. And I'm going to do something similar to what I did up here, where I'm going to split the sentence into its words, and then save each word into a list. That way we can build our formatted essay. All right, and we've successfully taken an input. So after we open, read, we've got to close our file. Great. So we'll actually cover what happens in between and how we'll solve the question in a little bit. But first, I actually want to go to the very end and think about how we'll do our file output. How will we write to file and give back our answer? So we'll eventually do this, but our answer will be just a string named line. And what I want to do is write this line to our answer.txt file. So here's how I can do that. So the same as before, we'll need to open, give the file name. It's a little different this time. And then this time I want to open in write mode. You can also do append mode depending on the situation. So write mode would overwrite the text file, and append will add it to the end. So after I open it, all I've got to do is f.write and then the line. So remember, the line is going to represent our final answer. Right now it's going to be an empty string, but that's because we haven't done the actual logic yet. So f.write line, and the very last thing we'll do is f.close. Right, so now we've got our file input and output ready. All we need to do is actually solve the question in between. So let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, I'm going to make my line variable, just make an empty string. I'm also going to have a line count variable, just to keep count of how many characters I have per line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to iterate through my essay list. And then what I want to do is I want to see if the current word I'm looking at, if I were to add the current word to my current line, is that line count greater than or less than k? So if the word I'm trying to add makes the word count, the line count, less than k, then it's fine to slot it in. However, if the word I'm trying to add exceeds k, so if I add it and the line count is now over k, what I want to do is instead is start a new line and add it there. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to say for each in essay, so for each word in my essay, if line count plus each is less than equal to args1. So remember, args1 is going to be our k, right? So args0 will be this 10 or n. This args1 will be our 7 or k. So the k is what we're interested in. We want to have our lines be less than 7 characters each. So if the current word I'm looking at plus the current character count is less than k, what I want to do is do this kind of operation, like add it to my line, and then increase the line count. So line count plus equal len of each, and then line plus equal each. Right, so what I'm doing here is I'm checking to see, hey, if I were to add this word into my line, would it be less than k? It is? Great. Let's go ahead and add it to my line, and go ahead and change the count. Right, so I'm kind of checking this condition first before I actually do the action. Otherwise, I'm going to do this. Otherwise meaning if I were to add my current word to my line, then the line count would be over k. What I want to do then is start on a new line and reset the line count. So here's how I'll reset the line count. So rather than saying line count equals 0, I'm going to reset it to be the length of my current word. Because if you imagine hello, my name is. So after I have hello and my, and I'm trying to add name, and I want to add name to this first line, but it doesn't fit. So I need to move name to the second line, but I also need to change the line count. So I need to change line count to equal the length of name rather than equal to 0. Because then if I don't do that, it'll kind of mess up the count. So I'll set line count equal to the length of my current word. And what I'm going to do is do this. Line equals line. So what this is going to be a slice. All it's doing is taking my line variable, so that's going to be the entire essay so far, and subtract one character, the last character. So if it were apple, it'd be apple without E. So the reason why I'm doing this is because of the constraint that we can't have a space at the end of any line. So if you imagine, as I'm building my essay, hello, then my, I might have a space after my. In fact, I will, and we'll actually cover that in just 1 second, but I might have a space after my. So when I start a new line, instead of leaving that space there, I want to remove that space, then start a new line. Right, so then I'll add line plus equal \n. So this is going to be an escape character that represents a new line, plus each. So the reason why I needed this line equals line -1 kind of is because I'm going to add a space after every iteration. So this means after every single word, I'll add a space. However, if we're trying to add a word and it doesn't fit in that line and we should add a new line, after we add that space, we'll actually remove that space right here. And then I'm also going to do one more of those because when we finish the entire essay and everything's formatted, the very last word will also have an extra space, which we don't want. And this is actually going to be our solution here. So let's go ahead and actually just print this out so we can see it. And we'll also check the file in just 1 second. Right, so we have hello, my name is Bessie, and this is my essay. And let's check the answer. Looks good to me. Now let's go ahead and check the actual text file and make sure there's no extra spaces. Great, so no spaces, extra spaces at the end of the line. And everything is formatted correctly. So I want to briefly highlight the file input and output here. Right, so for all USACO questions, they're always going to start and end the same way. First, we'll start by reading in some type of data, and then something happens in the middle, right? We'll solve the problem, and we'll have some kind of solution. But then we're going to write our solution to file, right? So we need another way of taking a look at this can be something like this. Right, so just kind of ignoring this specific question and just thinking about generalized questions. So the first step for any USACO question is to read the file. So you can kind of imagine like this. And then something in the middle happens, right? So this is going to be our solution to any problem. And then finally, we're going to write to file. Right, black box meaning it doesn't really matter what the question or the solution is. We just know that we'll put in some type of argument, it'll do some kind of work, and we'll return some kind of answer. So if you kind of just take a generalized conceptual look at what we're trying to do here for all USACO questions, is we're trying to read the file and grab some type of arguments. Right, in this case, in the previous question, the arguments were how many characters we can have per line and the actual essay itself. Next, we're going to solve the question. However we happen to solve it, we'll need to pass in the arguments, something will happen in the middle, and then we'll return an answer of some type. And then finally, we'll take that answer and write it to our file. So for all USACO questions, they'll all have the same general start and end. What happens in the middle can be, well, it'll be variable. It will change depending on the question. But no matter what, you will have to read the file and you will have to write a file. Alright, so thank you guys for watching, and go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know if this was helpful and what other questions you want to cover. So this has been Jimmy Ong for Coding Minds Academy, covering the USACO bronze question, word processor. Thanks, have a great day.